What if reading isn't just about decoding and comprehension? What if it's actually one of the most powerful ways we build empathy, identity, and connection to ourselves and the world?
From as young as I can remember, my family always read me Harold and the Purple Crayon. Little did I know that it held a sort of significance into life and life lessons. Harold always talked about drawing a better path and introducing the things in his life that he needed to get through and get his experiences. As I grew through a reader, I realized that I wasn't I was a good reader, but had areas where I wasn't comprehending everything all the time. There's extra things that I needed to do. As I moved through my life, with those struggles linked to not necessarily wanting to read and reading not being the cool thing, I fell out of love with reading. Reading seemed like a chore to me, something I didn't want to do. And then as I grew into high school, I found that reading on my phone was a different way that I could read and not necessarily count the pages. So as I did that, I fell back into love with reading. I found the genre that I liked. I was able to comprehend better. So going from reading on a book and counting the pages towards reading on the computer, reading on my phone, stuff like that, I was able to see that a different multimodal reading tool was reading electronically, and that helped me as a reader. Um, and I've been reading ever since. Um, Life lessons are all throughout Harold on the Purple Crayon. He's always talking about how he's moving forward, drawing the next path. And I feel that as a reader, it's all about drawing the next path. What are you going to read next? Where are you going to go next? So as a reader, I identify myself as just moving forward and always drawing the next path. And yeah.
Fourth grade Miss Moore's class was the best elementary school class I had ever been in. Miss Moore was personable, kind, and clear with her expectations. I knew what was expected of me, and then she knew what I expected from her to be a great teacher. She was actually the teacher I wrote my fifth grade little essay about because she had put such an impact on me. I always loved how I could talk to Miss Moore when I needed to, and she was always there to answer questions and really did a good job encouraging me to read.
Growing up,
I
I had a lot of positive literacy experiences, and some of my most memorable ones actually had to do with the screen. I watched a lot of TV and movies and played lots of narrative style video games with my siblings. And all of those different activities, I think, helped me build a lot of background knowledge and vocabulary to be able to read more complex texts later on. We checked out a book from the library called Mr. Waffles. Mr. Waffles did not have any words in it. So we had to make up the words each time we read it. And every time we read it, it was a little bit different from the last time. Our research question states, in what ways do our experiences as readers and educators influence how we respond to and improve students' general attitudes and engagement with independent reading? Our understanding of reading development has changed a lot over time. The simple view of reading started in 1986 and explains that reading comprehension depends on word recognition and language comprehension. This led to Scarborough's reading rope, which built upon this theory by breaking reading into multiple strands, like vocabulary, background knowledge, decoding, and language structures that weave together to create skilled, fluent reading. But even with this expanded view, both models still leave out some important factors. They don't explain why students may struggle with reading even when decoding and comprehension seem age appropriate. Missing from these models are elements like engagement, motivation, and executive functioning, factors that influence attention, persistence, strategy use, and a student's willingness to read in the first place. To address these gaps, researchers have introduced the active view of reading. This updated model incorporates not only linguistic and cognitive skills, but also motivation, self-regulation, and the active processes students use while reading. Researchers Duke and Cartwright in 2021 proposed that the active view of reading better reflects the current science of reading by accounting for cases of reading comprehension difficulty despite age-appropriate word recognition and language comprehension. Helping students develop a genuine love for reading isn't just about teaching skills, it's about supporting their motivation. According to self-determination theory, which is the leading theory in motivation research right now, students are more intrinsically motivated when three psychological needs are met: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. When students feel like they have choices, feel capable, and connected, they are more willing to engage in reading and persist through those challenges.
There are two themes that were identified most through our research, and that is social interactions in reading and reading motivation. So, social interactions or reading are outside influences that impact each person and how they view reading. So, whether that be a positive thing that happened, a negative thing that happened, um, like some of our researchers said, having those experiences and having growing up with a teacher, automatically loving reading and having those experiences. Then we had some researchers say that not not having positive experiences um, led them to not reading, like myself. And then the experiences came back around in promoting reading and stuff like that. So social interactions and reading is one of the themes that we identified. Another theme we identified is reading motivation. So reading motivation is present throughout all of our research. And among the research, each person experiences their own positive and negative interactions. And we also discussed what that means as a teacher. So, what do we do as educators in promoting reading motivation, and how we can again provide those social interactions in reading for our students to make them love reading. What can we do as educators? And again, those are two of our themes that were identified and through the research and vignette process. And there are a couple of videos that reflect that.
So the question was, how have your interactions with others and your surroundings impacted your attitude towards reading? And it's more so like how have like maybe like your family members or just anyone in your life, it doesn't have to be parents, but anyone in your life, or any place in your life that has like influenced how you feel about reading, like in general.
Well, I grew up with an English teacher as a mom. So she would always she was very much the type that was making sure that when we were little, when we were in elementary school, making sure that we were on level, making sure that we had our reading levels, making sure that we read our books, our AR books, and things of that nature. And she also just would talk about, she just loved it. She loved talking about the novels that she would be teaching or the novels that she would want to teach. And so that just caused me to just want to read. And I mean, I've always looked up to my mom, and I still do to this day. One of the reasons why I became a teacher. Incentives of reading.
I feel like I don't think incentives are a hindrance depending on the age. I think for younger kids, they need that external motivation to help them build the intrinsic motivation.
Mm.
That's really hard to do with younger kids, unless they already naturally have a love for reading. But if they don't, then how are you going to incentivize them to do it? So
That's true.
it just depends.
I it depends. Incentivizing sometimes gives the like if you incentivize too much, then they're like, oh my gosh, I get this. Like I don't know. I just feel like incentivizing is good, but at some point it does become a hindrance if they get too much into it.
Right.
Yes, but I'm all for motivation. I'm all for incentives and whatnot. I just feel like there's a point to where to stop.
Yeah, there's a balance of it.
Yeah, making sure they know that they're not in control of it
Mm-hmm.
is where I don't know. That's how my class last year was like that.
I feel that. Yeah. Cool.
Did he struggle with reading?
He did. My mom always wanted to get him tested for dyslexia,
Mhm.
but that just never happened. But also he just was that type where like he was probably not mature enough to be in kindergarten at the age that he was in.
Mhm.
Like my mom tried to get him held back as well because he was like, I don't like school. They make me want to sit down and do stuff. He's like, I want to be playing.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it was more of like that stuff. But I just find it wild of the whole like nature versus nurture type deal of
Mhm.
like we literally came from the same household, yet we are so completely different.
Yeah.
And it's just wild that I mean, nobody had to ask me to read. I just did it because I was like, oh, this is fun. And he like it was pulling teeth. So
And I'm
Yeah.
sure like your mom read to both of y'all. So,
uh-huh, yeah.
and it's, yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's very interesting how that happens. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know, motivation in reading is just the hardest thing to like to understand. Like, you don't want to push someone too much in reading that they just hate it. But then you also be like, okay, you have to read.
Right.
Yes.
So get better at it.
Like, you have to
Um,
read it.
I wonder if his like his early experiences in school is what made him like associate reading with like having to sit still, and maybe like that made it even harder for him to, you know, see it in a more positive light.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how can you improve attitudes and engagement in your classroom? You can take the psychological needs from self-determination theory and apply it to the classroom. To support autonomy, you can let students choose their own books and give them time to read, while offering a diverse range of texts in multimodal formats like print, digital, and audio. You can also um, help them with their competence by teaching them specific strategies to use when faced with a reading challenge. And this can be more personalized towards the student depending on their needs, if they have more decoding challenges or if they have comprehension challenges. And then for relatedness, you can allow students to share and talk about their reading by giving them opportunities to showcase what they've learned through books, or having book clubs or discussions around the books that they are reading.
So now I see reading as this thing that takes people to other worlds, that advances their understanding of topics, advances their love for a certain thing, and advances their education, and just grows them as a person. And throughout this research, I've just realized that memories that we've had and personal experiences that we have, and really that